Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Annassa. I'm so happy to see you guys this morning. So let's start with the meditation. So take your attention inside, and we're going to do the Om sound in a new way, which is the Om has 3 syllables within one. And so it contains a whole practice within one sound. So the first sound is ah, and that happens in your pelvis at the base of your spine and spreading outward and upward. And then the second sound is O or oo, somewhere in between, and that's in your heart center. And then the third sound is and it kind of has a little buzz to it, like when we were kids and we used to buzz wax paper on a comb. I don't know if you ever did that, but that's kind of the feeling in your head that you want from the So we'll do it once, and then we're going to do that 9 times. And then, and I'll give you directions when we get there, but what we'll do after that is we'll whisper the sound. So we'll still go to the same places and we'll still do the same syllables, but in a whisper. And so we'll be watching the energy rising as we do that with all 3 versions. And then the third version is you say the syllables inside and watch the energy go up. And then the fourth version, you just breathe and watch the energy go up. And all 4, the sensation is completely different. So, and we'll talk you through the entire practice. So we'll do the tone version once, and then we'll do it with everybody 9 times. Om. 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 And now we do it in a whisper. And now just say the sound inside yourself and watch the energy move. And now just watch your breath move up. Now gently take your time, and with each breath, open your eyes a little bit further as you bring your attention back to the screen. So welcome everybody. We're open for questions. So happy to see you this morning. Hope you enjoyed the meditation. It's something that gets more and more fun with practice. So how may we serve this morning?
Hi, this is Paul.
Hi, Paul. How are you? We miss you.
Yeah, been fighting a jaw infection. So, been, as the pandemic just keeps rolling on, I was thinking back on the beginning of the pandemic and the start of the lockdowns, and there was a sense of hope in myself and others that I talked to that possibly there might be a reset. We might come out of this in a better space where the world mega machine might be reset. Everybody might come out with a little different perspective. And now, 2 years in, it just seems like it's going to be more of the same and maybe even worse. And so that gives me, a little pause and maybe, a little despair at the human condition. It's just going to be more of the same. We're going to be gobbling up fossil fuels until it's gone, and it's too late anyway. So there's a bit of despair in that realization that it's the same old, same old. We had a chance, and I feel like that chance is squandered. If anything, it's gotten worse. Any thoughts on that?
We have lots of thoughts on that. So, in case you didn't hear the question, it was observations that the pandemic has gone on for 2 years. And at the beginning, there was some sense of hope. And now he feels there's no sense of hope. And the climate has gone out of control beyond our capacity to make any effective move to change the future, and that we're doomed. So we do have thoughts about that perspective. Our first thought is with Omicron, everybody's getting it, but much fewer, many fewer people are dying. And so there is actually the possibility that herd immunity is going to happen. It's the possibility, because every time one person gets infected, 10 more get infected. That is a huge R number. R number is the number of people who get infected per person who gets it. So that infectivity with a much lower death rate, and people are getting sick for a few days for the most part, and they do recover pretty much full function as far as we can tell. So this is the first sign that we've really seen for anything optimistic, that the virus has learned that if it wants to survive, it can't kill its host. So this is a good thing. We can learn to live with the virus because we don't have much alternative. But it still doesn't address the bigger picture, which is that every time we get bigger drugs, we get bigger bugs and bigger drugs and bigger bugs. And so this is not going to be the last pandemic, sadly. But hopefully we will have learned something about how to prepare for a pandemic. Always we've been behind with this one. It just has moved faster than our ability to mobilize resources. And so if we have some break before there's a different pandemic, it's possible that we could get a little bit ahead with our technology. So the other thing is the climate, and they're really part and parcel of the same thing. That humanity has gone for immediate gratification, regardless of the consequences on our long-term resources. And we're just now, like, it's dawning on us that the resources really are disappearing and there's nothing to take their place. So we're going to say that we have faith in human ingenuity to actually transform our understanding so that there's some new technology before we disappear. This is the only way it's going to happen. And where's that new technology going to come from? It's going to come from alignment. Anything good that is going to happen for the world is going to happen because some person decided they wanted to act in the highest, best interests of the whole. And incidentally, the highest, best interests of themselves. And from that alignment, they will be gifted with the solution for humanity. This is the only way it can work, because it's beyond our imagination and it's certainly beyond linear mind. And so the only way to get there is to work on ourselves. And then regardless of outcome, we will be in alignment. And that's what we're doing here anyway. That's the reason we're here, is to discover that perfect alignment with our inner. And that perfect alignment with our inner is in perfect alignment with the inner of the whole, because the way it works is as above, so below. And since we're below, we have to bring ourselves to above. And the way we do that is we address any darkness that we can possibly find in ourselves. And we bring that darkness into the light. And we say Ho'oponopono to it until that pattern, that crystallized pattern, is dissolved, releasing more of our energy into creative flow so that we can participate in a greater way with the whole. That's how it works. It's simple. We take these crystallized patterns of dark energy, whatever the pattern is, be it shame, anger, frustration, anything that we're doing to torture ourselves, we bring to the light. And we say Ho'oponopono, I'm sorry. We're not apologizing to anything outside of ourselves. We are apologizing for a lack of alignment within ourselves. We're apologizing for being kind of crooked in terms of our alignment with our own highest, best interests. We got confused and chose something else. And so this misalignment is demonstrated in our discomfort. Incidentally, that discomfort is the nidus for any disease process that our body decides to manifest. Any disease process begins with disharmony within our mental and emotional field. Any and every disease results from misalignment with our highest purpose. Everything in the way we are made is made for us to go into this alignment. Animals know it. They come into the world knowing it. They don't have to figure anything out. What makes us different is what goes on here. We have a linear mind, and we're letting it drive when it should actually be just the pattern recognition mechanism that keeps us in alignment. But instead, it's in the driver's seat, and our hearts have been told that they're irrelevant because they are subjective. We live in a world that is only limited. The only thoughts that are allowed are linear thoughts. The only experience that we're taught to cultivate is horizontal, like this, horizontal. Now, we're really made to be vertical, and we're made to have the driver's seat be in the heart, because the heart is where we know what has value. and what doesn't. That's the only place we know the truth. Our heart knows the truth because it can feel the truth. When your heart gets so numb that you can't feel the truth, you know you have to say Ho'oponopono thousands of times. And it doesn't matter how many times you have to say it, but if you can't get to your heart, you have to say it more than you're saying it now. Because being able to have your energy in your heart and hold your attention in your heart is what makes the difference between a person who's connected to nonlinear being and a person who's dominated by by horizontal experience. So we have to take our attention inside us, and for at least 20 minutes a day, forget about the horizontal experience. Really forget about it. Just completely let it go and cultivate the vertical, which is what we did in meditation this morning. If you noticed, we worked on getting that vertical flow moving. And it will always come down. It knows how to do that. That's what our breath does. It comes in and it comes down, and it fuels the rest of our body. But the spiritual breath goes up. And it's nice if we align it with our out breath, because then we're in harmony in our bodies. We're not trying to do two things at once, two separate things. We're doing one thing. We are releasing our energy upward so that we have a different perspective, because it is that greater flow of energy which informs our heart that it's time to wake up and get in the driver's seat. Because without our heart participating in who we are becoming, we're not becoming anything but a bigger mud puddle. So that was a long answer, and we didn't really, did we address everything, Paul?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, kind of. We're not depressed, is basically what we're saying. There is hope. As long as there is life, there is hope.
I'm not depressed. There's despair, and I'm not. The virus is just the virus. I'm not worried about the virus.
Mm-hmm.
The virus is probably just a symptom of disease within the earth. It is the human condition that is just rolling on. I feel like we, as a collective, had a chance to reset with this, with the big shutdown, and then you could open up, maybe a little better, where you're not just gobbling shit up like we have been for the last 200 years. So it's just a little despair, and work is great. Outer world, not so great. And I'm not worried about humanity. Humanity is neither here nor there. The earth will survive regardless. So it's all good.
Okay. So I think we expressed our perspective pretty clearly. The other thing we'll say is that if you look at the whole of the earth as an organism, Paul said that the earth will survive, and this is completely true. And the real disease in human beings is not the virus. The disease in human beings is that our attention and our intention and our dedication is all aimed horizontally. And unless we get back to vertical living in ourselves, our connection with divinity, with our own source of being, source of well-being, then we are out of alignment and we will be kicked off the planet because of that lack of alignment, because we're not in alignment with the whole. So we can't stay here. It's as simple as that. Human ingenuity being what it is, here's the solution. We're sitting in it. The solution is vertical awareness, realigning ourselves with our heart and running our heart energy through our mind before we behave. And that way, our hearts, which are full of love and compassion and joy, all the good things of life, will become available. But because we don't live from our own goodness, we're a blight. We don't really belong in a good place. We don't know how to take care of it. We don't know how to be in alignment. And so it's not exactly punishment. It's not some outside force doing things to us. It's us making big mistakes in where we choose to put our energy. And where we choose to put our energy is the only choice we really have in life. This is what Rebecca is learning from studying astrology. That the only place we have free will is where we put our attention, what our intention is, and whether or not we mobilize our resources to hold to that intention long enough to make changes within ourselves that will create ever greater alignment with the whole. And the beauty of the system is that even if we really screw up and the world blows up, it's just going to reform. And this whole thing will happen again. It's not, there isn't exactly possible failure. There's just, how long we're going to repeat this pattern before we get to live in a higher place in ourselves, before we really recreate Eden here, which is quite possible. We just have to get our drivers right. Our drivers are all up here. They have to get down here. It's simple. As we've told you many times before, if it's not simple, it's not spiritual. Not complicated. Does require participation. Does require that we set our intention to be more and more aligned with that which is at the core of our being every single day, no matter what happens. And all kinds of stuff happens. But when you can have the perspective that everything that happens for your benefit, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, it happens to expand your awareness and to meet whatever attachments have yet to be resolved within you. Whatever false expectations, false matrix of belief. Much of our experience happens to expose that to us. And if we don't listen, it tends to get louder and louder over time. And that's what's happening with humanity as a whole. We haven't been listening, and so the message is getting louder and louder. So the way we're speaking is as though it's all linear. And if you've been hanging around for a while, you know that nothing is really linear the way our brain is. So that our matrix of belief, which tends to line things up and connect dots, whether there are connections there or not, our matrix of belief is all based in linear thinking. So this is why we can use terms like horizontal and vertical. And they're right, but they're not totally right. Like when the energy moves, it doesn't just move in one direction, but it moves in both directions, up and down. And there's this central core of energy, and then it kind of opens up, sort of like a fountain in 360 directions. And then it comes down around us and gathers beneath us, and then comes up in the center. Well, it does the same thing in the other direction too at the same time. But we have to hang on to that flow at some point and make it simple so that we can participate. And then once we're participating, it will show us its more diverse expression. And of course, there's more diverse expression because every pore in our skin is an energy channel. And every one of those entrances is connected to a line of energy that connects to other meridians, and they all influence the whole. So there is this web of meridians throughout our being, and every one of those meridians carries energy in one direction primarily, but also in the other direction secondarily, or they wouldn't be in harmony. And the whole thing has a rhythm to it. So we've got a big orchestra going on in our body, but we kind of knew that already. But it's not just our skin and our bones and our organs and the blood. There is this energetic system that is multidimensional. And it's not that it has a life separate from us, but it has a life that we're not aware of simply because we haven't paid attention to it. Our attention's all distorted in this horizontal flow. And so where we put our attention in our lives is what we are feeding, what grows. Our attention is nourishment for whatever it is that we're trying to create. We are creative beings. And if all our attention's going this way, then everything that we participate is going to happen on this level. But if the reality of how we're made and where the decision-making process that really affects what happens in our lives, where the participation in the essence of our experience happens, all that decision-making is happening out of our awareness and therefore out of our participation. So it seems that we have no role in our own lives because we can't feel the junction point between ourselves and our energetic source that gives us the capacity to participate. We hope that makes sense. It's important. So we'll say it again. The capacity to participate in the real decision-making of what happens in our lives has everything to do with our own connection to source. And if we can't feel our connection to our source, then we don't have any way of participating in the real drivers of our energetic being, which is where everything of importance happens. Everything important happens inside us. The drivers of what happens in our experience are not outside of our being. They are inside of our being. And since we put all our attention outside, we're not participating in any way. We have to pull our attention inside, discover our connection to the source of every experience. And in that discovery and that participation in connection comes the availability of the experience of really being part of the decision-making process in our lives. This is an experiential understanding that cannot be understood until we cultivate the experience enough to have it. It's just an idea, and it's not a linear idea, so it's really hard to hang on to. So this is the only place where faith is an important word, because it takes a little bit of faith to go digging for our connection. Not a lot. Mostly we do it because we're tired of being uncomfortable in ourselves and we're tired of being in pain. And so we start to turn our attention around to try to discover where the levers are that are making us feel in pain all the time. That's why most people come to spiritual practice. And it works. You know, whatever gets you to change your attention from the outside to the inside really does work. It doesn't matter what the event is, but you must turn your attention inside and spend at least 20 minutes every day connecting to that deepest part of ourselves and trying to open your heart, trying to feel that love, which is the source of everything, including our breath. How may we serve further? We promised Rebecca when she agreed to channel that every time she spoke, it would get more. We're keeping our end of the bargain. How are you guys doing? Are you participating? Yeah, every single one of you is. That's what we see. And don't deny yourselves that gift of approval. The very fact that you're here shows that you are participating. The thing that we always do, because we've been taught by our environment, is that self-acceptance is something akin to egotism. Well, it's not. Self-acceptance is absolutely necessary to participate in our inner. Because if we go inside and say, "You idiot," we've already just broken our connection. So we have to go inside with gratitude. Thank you. Thank you for participating. Thank you for allowing me to participate. I love you. Guaranteed to get results. Yelling at ourselves doesn't get results except shutting us down. So there's a softness that we're cultivating toward ourselves, a softness that says, yeah, I was taught wrong. It's time for me to learn different. The people who taught me just didn't know any better. It wasn't an intentional criminal event. It was just ignorance. Ignorance is the cause of suffering. The antidote to suffering is to stop suffering. Don't yell at yourself, love yourself. And if you can't feel the experience of loving yourself, sometimes it's really helpful to pick up a stuffed animal and just pour love into that stuffed animal. Next thing you know, you can feel it. It's very safe to love a stuffed animal. And that's how we can get to love in ourselves. So instead of going inside and criticizing yourself because you don't know how to meditate, because you can't feel anything, because you don't know what's going on, and it all sounds crazy, but you know you have to do it. That's sort of what happens, right? So instead of doing that, just pick up a stuffed animal and love it. Just love it with everything you have. And the next thing you know, you'll be smiling. And this is what meditation is really about. And that's just as effective as what we showed you at the beginning. And once you've got that going, once you've really loved your stuffed animal, then you work on your breath. And we guarantee it'll be successful. Where you start is where you end up. And if you start believing that you can't do something or can't feel something or don't have it right or you're doing it wrong, any of that stuff, you just have to let go of it and just hug a stuffed animal instead, or hug yourself. You can do that. It works to do this. We can attest to it. In a pinch, if you hug yourself and you smile, you'll connect. It's that simple. So whenever you find yourself in the, I can't do it, I haven't felt anything ever, I can't do it, it's not in me, forget it. Hug a stuffed animal, hug yourself. We need to disrupt these patterns of self-rejection. We need to do it before we meditate. And whenever we see ourselves, you can't do it, whenever we see ourselves doing that, we need to stop and start over. Wait a minute, reset. Everybody can do this. We've just been taught wrong. But it doesn't mean we have to be mad at our teachers, because that just creates another layer of discomfort in us. We don't have to be mad at anybody. All we have to do is melt. Hug a stuffed animal. Hug ourselves. Hold our heart. I love you. Just feel that love. This is the source of our being. Being in alignment with that is the most beautiful experience possible. And it just gets more from there. There's always, always more. So anybody who tells you they're enlightened means they don't understand that there's always more. Trust us. There is always more. And that more has nothing to do with where you are on what planet, in what part of the multiverse. As above, so below. It works throughout dimensional awareness. How may we serve further? Wally, so good to see you. How's Hawaii?
Hawaii's beautiful.
Oh, glad to hear it.
Brilliant sunshine today.
So how are you?
I feel good. I feel good. I may have a touch of Omicron. Because I'm feeling a little under the weather. And you sort of answered my question, or sort of leapfrogged over my problem. But maybe this is still relevant. I struggle with Ho'oponopono because of of a kind of linear thinking where I stumble over who I'm apologizing to. And it seems like I have to apologize to the divine for ignoring it, which I do, obviously. I do ignore it. So I'm not, I guess the question is about this sense of separation, that it seems like apologizing to immediately sets up a duality.
So the understanding is that the divine is something separate from you. That's what sets up the duality. When you understand that you're apologizing to your own divinity, which is the same divinity that is the source of everything, then there's no separation, except in your mind. Does that make sense? So you're apologizing to the whole, including you. It seems that somehow you're excluding yourself in that apology. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I must be doing that.
So let's see if you can feel into the inclusion as you say it to yourself. So the way you do that is you just expand your central core a little bit. Yeah, just open it up so that you're apologizing to a bigger field that includes you. It's a visceral experience. It's not a mental one. There you go. It's getting the energy down to your heart and making the expansion there. Or up to your heart. Doesn't matter down or up. As long as you're in the vertical axis, you're working the right thing and not in your head. You can work from the base of your spine just as effectively.
Okay.
Just opening up your pelvis and allowing the energy to either drop in or rise up. Either one is fine, but you need to be in the vertical axis. Whenever you get to your head, you're horizontal. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Could you
Vertical axis and self-inclusion. Capital S, small s, they're the same. Does that help?
Yeah. Could you
Okay.
say a little more about dropping in?
You use your breath to expand your pelvis. And if you do that, everything opens up. All the way up and down the vertical axis, right? And then can you feel your heart including you?
I think that's what's going on.
Yeah. And then you allow it to gather in the base again and it comes up. Got it? This is what the that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's inclusive. It's a non-dual experience. Great question. Thank you.
Thank you.
We all have that. How may we serve further? By the way, we really want to thank everybody. There have been a large number of donations that have come our way, and we're so grateful to you guys, all of you, for that. It really does make a huge difference, and we're not coordinated enough to be able to send out a thank you in an appropriate time frame. And so we're going to try doing it verbally because we're really, really grateful, and it helps a lot. So we want you to know you're making a difference and making it possible for us to do this with some semblance of ease in our life because of your participation. So thank you. How may we serve further? Yes.
Go.
Hi. Good morning. Good new year.
Thank you.
This is a very horizontal feeling question, and it's about a feeling of inner rejection of the people who are rejecting being part of the whole. So it's kind of convoluted. It's I would like to feel as though we are all in this together, and yet I feel as though half of us, who are, the whole of humanity, are working actively against the whole, the benefit of the whole. And when I'm doing my own work, I know that that's all I'm responsible for and responsible to. However, there's this like heaviness in my heart because I cannot bring myself to seeing this spark of the divine in the people who are actively working against the good. That's what they look like. That's what they look like they're doing. And I luckily, fortunately, don't meet many of those in my actual daily life. But there certainly has been a lot of visual. I mean, you tune into the weather and they're talking about January 6th, and showing these ugly pictures of humanity. And part of me says, don't go there. Don't be angry back. That's just getting involved in that energy. And it's definitely horizontal energy. But I really don't know how to address my feeling of it's more than annoyance at these people.
Yes, this is a great question, and we all share your feelings. So this is really a question for everybody. How do we deal with the fact that there are all those a-holes out there doing the wrong thing from the wrong place in themselves? There's only one way to deal with it, and that is to be our best self all the time. And what happens as we cultivate our own vertical field, and as we become more and more in alignment, our energy body begins to gather power because of our attention, our repeated attention And whenever we start to go out of alignment in a horizontal way, and we bring our attention back to the vertical and align ourselves and increase our dedication to our commitment to being in alignment. Whenever we do that, that alignment gathers power. And as that alignment gathers power, our sphere of influence begins to expand. This is our energetic sphere of influence. And that sphere of influence is the same thing as going to an Annassa temple and praying for someone, offering your highest best to their highest best, which is what we do when we pray for someone. So as our sphere of influence expands and our access to the highest for everyone expands, then that energetic presence becomes available more and more to people, even if they're not looking for it. At this point, only people who are really looking for it can find it, because it's kind of hidden, because there aren't enough people doing it. But, you know, as programs like this gather power and gather people, which is more power, and every person within that field gets empowered, and the whole thing starts to get bigger, then there is a kind of magnetism that can take place, and people begin feeling energetically hope. It's where it starts. And then the desire to participate, because they begin to see and experience people in their field as they go to the grocery store and do all the things that we do. It's amazing how much power a smile has when it comes from a connected place. It can change, you know, 6 people around you, just like that. A smile from a connected place in a crowded store where everybody's crabby. Try it. Everybody changes. You open your heart to somebody, you say to the cashier, wow, thank you. That was really nice what you just did. You know, just some small thing that somebody does, you acknowledge it and you open your heart, and the whole field around you magically changes. This is how we change the world. It's not with a new philosophy or a new idea or a new, you know, it's us changing ourselves and not responding to the irritation that other people are expressing in our environment in any given moment. Responding in a paradoxical way. We open instead of close. And then they remember, oh, I have a heart too. Yeah, it's nice to be with you too. And they change. Immediately their state just changes. Or if they can't, at least they're silent. Do you see this? This really changes the flavor of all our interactions. If we hold everything that happens to us in life is a test of whether we can hold to our alignment or not. Everything. And as we get better and better at holding to our alignment, then what we get to negotiate gets more and more complicated and more powerful. Always, whenever we can't tell what's going on, go into Ho'oponopono and the truth will appear. When you don't know where to put your foot in front of you, take your attention inside and say Ho'oponopono to whatever it is that's going on. And you hold to it and you ask to be informed about any level of participation that you might have in creating whatever difficulty your experience is. You really open yourself to understand what it is that you're seeing in front of you and how you might have helped create it. You just open yourself to that. You want feedback. And then you'll begin to see it. And then you'll know how to move. But always go inside first. Always create the alignment in you with your highest. And it is in our doing that that makes other people think that, oh, maybe I could do that too. It's simple. It's not complicated, but there's no way we can ever force anybody else to do anything. But by our participation in what we discover to be magic, mystery, and miracle at its source, as we participate more and more in that, then that has a kind of charisma to it that we gather as part of our personal power as we participate more and more fully every day. And you may not feel like you've made a dent in your own participation, even though you've been trying for a long time. And the reason we have that experience is because we come from a lineage of many generations of people who never even had the thought that there might be something inside worth exploring. And so there are generations of, we could call it silt deposits, layers and layers of silt deposits over our heart, over our internal mechanism that need to be swept away. A lot of silt needs to be swept away so that we can get to our own essence. And when we understand, because our faith in ourselves keeps drawing us back, because we know that what we're hearing is the truth. So we keep coming back and back and back. And one of these days, what do you know? We're happy, just for no reason. That's an open heart. And then you just do that as often as you can. You open your heart. Or you may look outside, see a beautiful day, and it just happens. Wow, what a beautiful day. Or you see the birds on the bird feeder. Look at those birds. Wow. Everything just opens up. You begin to participate in nature. You participate in a bigger field out of joy. And that's how to participate in the horizontal, with joy. And when you do that, we guarantee you'll have a lot more friends pretty fast. They might be the birds during the pandemic. Might be chipmunks, even squirrels. But you're participating. And joy is what moves mountains, in other people especially. How may we serve further? We hope that answered your question.
Go. Speak.
Okay. Yes, Nancy. Hi. You're still muted, it looks like. There you go.
Okay. Well, this is just a curiosity question. Did we have some awareness and before we came here with our blueprint of what we were going to be coming into in some way as such this pandemic? And what we might be up against or
We agreed to
our
it.
choices. Yeah.
We agreed to it. Here's the way it is. We agreed to the possibility. We were aware of the possibility. And that there would be a pandemic. Well, the odds just became more and more in favor of it as I know from a medical perspective that when I took infectious diseases back in early 1990s, that it was quite obvious that there would be a pandemic at some point, because when you see that the only way that the medical establishment, first of all, we have a medical establishment that denies that we even have an immune system. So there's no participation in our organic process in our Western medical culture. There's like a complete divorce from it. The idea is that our bodies are faulty and so we need these medicines to fix them. And they don't fix anything. They just kind of shut one thing down or open another. You know, they're kind of regulators way too far down in the chain of command to do anything but, you know, play shuffleboard on the surface. It's not, there's nothing about health in our disease management process that exists. And so the solution to infectious diseases has always been, we have to kill the bugs better with better drugs, stronger drugs. And then the bugs figure out how to get around the drugs. And so the bugs become stronger. And then we find a better drug to try to kill the bugs. And as long as we're trying to kill bugs, the thing's just gonna escalate, and then a pandemic is guaranteed to happen. It's part of just how life works, because life is continuously evolving. So if we're giving it a problem to solve to stay alive, the viruses, they're just gonna get bigger and bigger. Instead, we have lots of things in nature that we could use to work with those things, to actually build our system so that it kicks out the virus before it does anything bad, which is, you know, building our immune system to survive in the world has always been a better solution than bigger drugs and bigger bugs. But it's not a viable one in a commercial, pharmaceutical driven scheme to control our bodies. It's just not viable. It creates a setting for a pandemic. And so so many of our cultural drivers are in the wrong place because it's all about chasing the dollar rather than understanding how to work in harmony with what we are and our surroundings, our environment. So this, you know, this thing of accumulating dollars and even defining wealth as gold and silver, you know, using heavy metals as a standard. Well, we're treating heavy metals like they're an infinite resource, and they're not. The access to heavy metals is an infinite resource, but the heavy metals themselves are a finite resource. So we've never examined as a culture how to bridge the difference between infinite resource and finite resource. Because as human beings, we have access to infinite resource, but we've screwed it up because we don't connect to it to figure out how to participate. We instead assume that we know better between our ears, which of course is a mistake. Infinite resource is, you know, the true driver of all of life. And in our inability to participate with infinite resource, which is the source of life itself, we are destroying our capacity to interact with it, and therefore destroying ourselves. So it's our self-destruction we're looking at, not, not anything out there doing it to us. We just haven't put our drivers in the right place to participate in the environment that has created us and sustained us.
And that needs to evolve as well.
Exactly. And the only way that will evolve is with people like us aligning and aligning and aligning, and our power sphere gets bigger and more people begin to do it. And, if it doesn't happen in time, we'll just get kicked off and start over somewhere else, or there'll be another place for us recreated. This evolution will continue. We won't participate in the same form. We might not be able to find each other in the same way, but one thing we know for sure, the love that we share between us doesn't die. If you've ever loved anybody and they've died, you can feel in this moment, you can feel them. You just feel for that love and they appear. They're right there on the other end. We don't know where the other end is exactly from our human perspective. We can't see it, but we can feel it. And having a heart is the greatest gift.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for participating. How may we serve further? Andrew? We're going to talk a little bit about opportunities for transformation, because there will be, as you work deeper and deeper, periods of transformation where the possibility for expanding a great deal in a short period of time becomes available. And when that happens for you, the important thing to do is just say yes. There will be a moment where fear will begin to arise. Can I trust what's happening? There's a big expansion trying to happen, and you can feel the change. And whenever we feel any internal change, our first thing is to get afraid. Our first thing is fear. And so you say, hello, fear. Is my life in danger? And you look around yourself. And if your life is in danger, you take care of it. If it's not, then you just go inside and say yes. Because the danger is in your imagination, not in your experience. And allow yourself to expand. And after that happens a few times, you'll go looking for it, because it's unbelievably beautiful. Always. Always, always, always. And there's always more. But it's not just about pleasure, because of course there's pain too. And so what do we do when we're in pain? What do we do? Same thing we do as when we're in pleasure. We go inside We breathe into the pain and we invite it to tell us about itself. And we ask if there's anything we can do to participate in bringing that pain into harmony. And whatever we can do, we do. And the key is that we understand that our body has mechanisms to kind of shut down the pain. And so we'll never be beyond what we can tolerate in a certain way. So we can have a little bit of faith about that, that our body, and quite frankly, that's when pharmaceuticals are helpful too. But always we want to be working on breaking down barriers internally, especially in our mental and emotional level, so that we can participate ever more freely in that which is aligned with our own divinity and the divinity of the whole, which is the same thing. And we don't want to exclude any of it. Nothing is excluded from it. Everything is part of it. And so there's no part that we can say, you don't belong here. Every part is informing us more about our expansion and our transformation into union with our own divinity, which is the divinity of the whole. So I think that brings us back to where we started, which is meditation. So let's do that for a few more minutes together. Boy, this morning went fast. So take your attention inside. And with whatever tools you have, align yourself with that upward flow. And we'll be broadcasting with our eyes open and wishing you well completely from the depths of our union. Okay, everyone. It's been so beautiful to be with you today. Thank you so much for coming. So much love.
Yay.
Mm. Till next week. Bye for now.